One little change could affect the rest of the timeline. Either it is a hero, a villain, a citizen, or anybody or anything. I am the watcher of the multiverse, and I ask of you to come with me and explore this changed universe. Imagine if Sam Raimi's Flash Thompson became Spider-Man. How would the least popular character in the Sam Raimi universe affect this timeline? Let us see what would happen. It is the year 2002. Young Peter Parker, Harry Osborn, and the other class members went on their trip to the spider study. The radioactive spider that was supposed to be where Peter was actually near its container, hiding from the class and everyone else that was working in the building. When Peter asked MJ for some pictures, before he took the first shot, Flash saw and decided to join MJ with the pictures instead of going with the group. And Peter went with it while being a little disappointed about it. While the photos were being taken, the spider looked around, seeing who was closest to it, and the one closest to its container was Flash. After a few shots, the spider slowly came up to Flash's hand and bit him. Flash felt the bite pain and he smacked the spider off, almost killing it. MJ asked if he was alright, and Flash said that it was nothing. He went on with MJ, and Peter looked around for the spider, trying to figure out what happened to it. The spider sneakily crawled up Peter's leg with the strength it had left. And Peter went on, unsure of what happened to the spider. He saw on the screen what the radioactive spider contained, finding out that it is radioactive. And the radioactive spider had many fascinating abilities, and Peter thought and believed that this was the radioactive spider that bit Flash and hoped that he would be alright. Peter went on with the class. Instead of Peter Parker being the main character in this universe, Flash Thompson is. A little bit afterward, on the way back home, Flash started to feel very off inside of him. Flash started to have flashes and he felt a little dizzy, and the spider bite got bigger. So he asked MJ if he could come to her house, and she said that he could, noticing sweat on his face. MJ asked Flash if he was doing alright, and Flash answered, saying that he is not feeling good, but he is sure it will go away soon. The bus made it to MJ's house, and they went in. Peter got out and went into his Uncle Ben and Aunt May's. His Uncle Ben asked how it went, and Peter said that it went okay, and he went to his room. When he went to his room, he placed down the camera a little disappointed. Peter liked MJ, and he wanted to get a chance to be with her for once, but Flash kept on getting in the way, even on what happened at the school trip today. When he placed the camera down, the spider got off and made its way to the window and crawled out of there, starting to form a web, making that spot its new home. Back in MJ's house, MJ's father wasn't in the house, and MJ wasn't allowed to have Flash over when he was not around. Flash became very sweaty, and he felt dizzy and asked MJ where the bathroom was, and MJ led Flash to the bathroom. Flash became even more dizzy and started to get hot. He took his shirt off and tried to cool down with water, but nothing could work. In a blink of an eye, he got down and fainted. MJ knocked on the door asking if Flash was alright, but no response. She knocked again and again, still nothing. She became a little bit worried as she believed that Flash just needed space, and she left him in the bathroom for the rest of the day, giving him time to recover without knowing that Flash was unwakeable. During this incident, Norman Osborn was in Oscorp with his assistant and became the Green Goblin and killed his assistant, and afterwards stole the glider and the suit, just like the original timeline. Flash woke up and heard a lot of banging on the door. It was MJ's dad, furious about having him over without his permission. Flash got up and felt better and saw that he looked a little different with his muscle size. He saw the size of the bite shrink a tiny bit, and he went out, and the father forced him to get out. Flash went and saw that it was nighttime and looked at the time, and he was out for almost 5 hours. MJ was sound asleep in her room, not knowing that Flash was gone. He walked back home and tried to figure out what happened. He looked at his wrists and noticed that something was off as well. He felt his senses go off and he heard a noise coming from an alleyway. He saw a man beat up another man and took his wallet. Flash told him to give the wallet back, and the man pulled out a knife and took a swing. Flash dodged and did a backflip, kicking the knife to the brick wall. Flash was shocked to notice what he just did, and a web came out of Flash's wrist and it attached to the man's chest. Flash quickly threw the guy to the wall with the web that he shot out, knocking the man out. The beaten up man got up and thanked Flash for what he did. Flash got the man's wallet and told him to go. When the beaten up man was gone, Flash looked back at the man he defeated. He then put his hand to the wall and he had a little trouble letting go of the wall. He looked at the tips of his fingers and put his other hand to the wall. He slowly climbed up and couldn't believe the amazement that was happening. When he got to the rooftop, he was laughing with amazement. He went to the ledge of the building and looked at his wrist again from the web that it came out of. He tried to figure out how to make the webs come out, and he eventually did. Flash gave the web a little pull, and the web was very strong. He put his hands together and jumped. He was going down fast, screaming and hoping not to get hurt or anything. He was about to hit a building wall, and he used his other hand to send out another web to prevent crashing into the building wall. He swung all the way back to his house, and he thought of where these incredible powers came from. He immediately remembered the spider bite. He looked at the spider bite and he believed that the spider was the true reason that gave him the powers, but he didn't know why. He thought of telling MJ, but decided to think of a perfect opportunity to tell her, and he went in and got some rest. In the morning, MJ was out by herself and was hoping that Flash was alright. Peter came out and asked how she was doing. MJ said that she was doing fine and she is worried about Flash, and she hasn't seen him ever since they came back home from the school field trip. Peter then told her that he hoped that Flash would be okay, and just when Peter was about to say something, the bus came. The two went in, and they were on their way to school. At school, Harry was talking to Peter at lunch, and everything went pretty normal. MJ was coming over with her food, and she slipped near the table where Flash was, and his spidey senses went off immediately. He quickly got up and got MJ and grabbed the tray and made sure nothing fell off, just like how Peter did it in the original timeline. MJ was surprised to see Flash alright. MJ thanked him and she sat down with Flash. Flash was surprised to see what was going on, and he decided to keep it a secret for now. Peter and Harry saw what just happened, and Peter told Harry about the incident that happened yesterday at the trip. Harry told Peter that Flash is probably just energized from the food or something, and the two decided to ignore the recent experience and move on. Later that day, Peter went up to MJ while Flash was out in the distance distracted, giving Peter the time and courage to try to ask MJ something that he never had the chance to ask back at the school bus. Peter asked MJ if she wanted to hang out sometime because they never really had much time, and MJ smiled and said that she might be able to. Flash saw them in the distance talking, and he stormed to Peter, telling him to buzz off. MJ told Flash to calm down, but he ignored. Peter told MJ that it is alright and that he will go. Peter went out of the room, discouraged by what just happened. MJ looked at Flash and told him that something is going on with him, and Flash told her that she doesn't deserve to talk to a twerpy nerd like Peter. MJ then stood up for Peter and said that she had enough right now and that they're through. She stormed out of there and went after Peter. Flash was mad, but also felt a little bad for what he did, and he decided to follow MJ to know what she's going to say to Peter. MJ caught up to Peter and apologized to him on what just happened. Peter said that it was fine, and he still asked if she wanted to hang out with him sometime, and MJ said that she was available and asked what they wanted to do. Flash was with them in the room, hiding near them, listening very carefully to what they were talking about. Peter told MJ that he has 2 tickets for the wrestling match with Bonesaw and $3,000 and wondered if she would go out with him. MJ thought it was a great idea to get her mind off of Flash, and Flash heard where they were heading and he stormed out of there, pissed off. He went back to his house and looked at a paper about the $3,000 wrestling match against Bonesaw. He thought that if he fights against Bonesaw and shows and tries to impress MJ, then there could be that big possibility to get her back. He then thought of making a costume for the match to keep his identity a secret. He drew it out and made a suit similar to the one Peter had in the original timeline. Except for it being red, it was blue. And instead of blue, it was red with the same costume wear. He was ready for the match that is going to be taking place. It was the day of the wrestling match, and Ben let MJ and Peter get out of the car. Just before Peter got out, Ben wanted to talk to Peter for a second, and Peter told MJ that he would be with her in a minute. Ben told Peter that he is proud of Peter becoming a man and told him to be careful. And he told him that with the power that he has with them, with whatever circumstance there is, either it was good or bad, there is always going to be that great responsibility to use that power wisely. Peter got out of the car, remembering what his Uncle Ben said to him, and Ben was off telling them that he will be there when he picks them up. Harry, during this, found his father out on the floor and helped them up. Norman got the news that one of the scientists was murdered at Oscorp, and he then got informed that the suit and glider was missing. They went in and tried to know what happened, just like the original timeline, but they couldn't know who did it. Back in the wrestling match, Flash got into his wrestling outfit and entered into the match against Bonesaw. The announcer announced Flash's name as the Amazing Spider-Man. And Flash didn't really care about the name, but he only cared about the money and getting his girlfriend back. Peter and MJ were on the cloud near the doors to leave, and they saw him, not noticing that it was Flash. Flash got into the ring, and the arena started with it being a cage match. When Flash saw the walls come down, he knew that this would give him an even bigger advantage. Bonesaw charged at him, and Flash did a front flip and landed behind Bonesaw and kicked him in the back and stood in the distance. Flash asked Bonesaw if that was all he got, and Bonesaw got a chair and was about to slam it at Flash, but Flash quickly grabbed the chair and banged Bonesaw with it. Bonesaw tripped Flash, and Flash was mad. Flash got serious and headbutted him, and he got up. Flash used his webs to pull Bonesaw to him, and he picked him up and slammed him to the ground, and he got right on top of Bonesaw and banged him in the face several times. The beating was unexpected because Bonesaw has never been beaten before, and the crowd was cheering, and Flash won. Bonesaw was out and he was bruised. Flash won the match, and Peter and MJ were a little freaked out about the beating. The crowd goes wild, and they call out his name and cheer for Spider-Man. Back in the office where he was getting the $3,000, the man only gave him $100. Flash asked if he's going to speed up because he has somewhere to be, and the man told him that he is free to go. Flash was confused and told the man that the match was for $3,000 and not $100. The man told him that he was supposed to beat Bonesaw in 3 minutes and not under 3 minutes. Flash told him that he needs that money, and the man told him that he missed the part where that was his problem. Flash got mad and he slammed the table with his fist, saying that it is not fair, and the security guard came in and asked him to leave. Flash stormed out of there mad with the $100, and the burglar came in with his gun. Flash opened the elevator and was about to go in it and saw the burglar coming out running with the cash. Flash allowed the burglar to get in and escape, and the man told Flash that he could have stopped the robber, and Flash made fun of the man and told him that he deserved it and that he missed the part where that was his problem. Peter and MJ were out of the building talking about the match, and while they were talking, they saw a big crowd of people gathering far off in the distance, and they decided to check it out. When they came closer, Peter saw his Uncle Ben on the ground with blood coming out of him. He rushed over to him with great tears in his eyes and wanted to know what happened. And an officer told Peter that a man shot him and got away in his car. Peter told his uncle that everything is going to be alright, and Ben held his hand and said that everything will be alright and that he loves him dearly. Flash arrived a moment later and saw what was happening, and Ben died in Peter's arms. MJ comforted Peter, and Flash felt terrible for this. And Flash knew that he had to do something, and Flash ran out of there. And MJ saw him leave and helped Peter leave the area and head back to the neighborhood. Flash ran into an alleyway and got into his wrestling outfit. He climbed to the roof and swung straight to the burglar, going nonstop as fast as he could. The burglar was going nonstop with police cars behind him, and Flash arrived at the car and pulled the steering wheel out to prevent the burglar from turning. The car crashed into a gate, and the burglar ran with the bag of money into the building. Flash followed the burglar into the building, and the burglar got his gun and tried to know who it was. Flash got into action and kicked the burglar to the metal wall. Flash stepped forward and punched the burglar right and left. The burglar was about to fire, and Flash got his hand and broke it. Flash then threw the burglar to the window, and the burglar fell out of the window. The burglar is dead, and the money was beside him. Flash quickly shot a web to the bag and got the money and swung out of there to a rooftop and sat there, regretting his choice of letting the burglar escape earlier. Peter and MJ went into Peter's house, and his Aunt May was there, and they all mourned for Uncle Ben's death. This is where the first act of Imagine If Flash Thompson Became Spider-Man in the Sam Raimi series. I hope you all understood how one little change could affect the timeline. And if you want to know what will happen next, make sure to be prepared for it, because it'll get very interesting. But until that time comes, my friends, farewell.